Hi, I'm Sharon Knight, and thank you so much for joining us today for our Building Community Check-in. You know, Hope Communities started these check-ins because we know that some people were feeling isolated as a result of the quarantine and needed some information that they could trust and just wanted some, perhaps, inspiration. And so we started these shows 3 times a week on Facebook Live, and we used the format so that you could write comments or questions during the show. And then afterwards, of course, we know that many people watch these after it goes live. And we always want you to see the comments that were posted before, but encourage you to reach out to us at any time at info@hopecommunities.org with additional questions or with comments about the show or suggestions maybe for other shows. So we like to give a little bit of information each time that we get together, updates on the virus, resources available to you, and then share a book review at the end. So we'll be doing all of that today. It's going to be a really quick show. It's going to be fast-paced because we are cooking again. So Hope Communities, I think all of you know, provides housing, educational programs, and support services, and we have always believed in building community and trying to build relationships between neighbors and partners because we know that we are all better together and we are a stronger community together with diverse input than we would be if any of us were working alone. And so, first of all, as we get started on this show, let me say happy Juneteenth Day. As you probably know, Juneteenth Day is a celebration to mark the end of slavery in the United States. While it's always been an important marker, I can't help but believe that it's even more meaningful today as we really start to step forward and begin to understand how many bounds of oppression are still yet in our society. And I think a lot of people are beginning to understand that and trying to figure out ways to extinguish it. But anyway, happy Juneteenth Day. It's also memorable, I think, today that in quick response to the death of George Floyd, many police departments, municipalities around the country have changed their accountability standards for police. And the governor today did sign Senate Bill 2217, which was a Law Enforcement Integrity and Accountability Act. And so Denver is making reforms, and that was a pretty quick turnaround. It was a long time coming, but it was a quick turnaround once they started going on it. Also of great news and interest today is that the nation's highest court, in a 5-4 decision, rejected the claim that the 8-year-old Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, the DACA program, is illegal. And so this is a bit of a reprieve for people. We have clients that will be ecstatic with this news. It's a little bit of pressure off for a little bit. And it's not a complete resolution of the issue, of course, but it is a positive step in the right direction. So I'm going to read you 2 quotes today. The first is, "I don't think well of people who are prejudiced against people because of race. The only way for prejudiced people to change is to decide for themselves that all human beings should be treated fairly. We can't force them to think that way." And Rosa Parks said that. Another one is more recent. "Change will not come if we wait for some other person or for some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek." And that was by Barack Obama. So we're cooking today in honor of Juneteenth Day. As a matter of fact, I'm going to step away to the stove for just a second. You can probably hear the clicking and the crackling of the oil over there. So we're cooking a soul food dinner. And it's, of course, I'm not going to show you every single step because we don't have a lot of time for that. But this is similar to a dinner that I have had the pleasure of helping Adrian Miller, who is an amazing chef and author in the Denver area, to cook. And he wrote a book that we actually will preview at the end of this show. And it is called Soul Food. And it's really an amazing history of how soul food came to be, what the certain elements are of soul food for each of the dinners, and there's certain significance to all of those. And also just kind of the history of how food that was soul food evolved into other things. And so he presents the book in a really engaging, wonderful, light manner that also provides a lot of different information and history for you and some recipes. And so some of the recipes that we will do today are ones that he believes are integral elements of a soul food dinner. So one of the first things that we're going to do is an appetizer. And what I have done is I've prepared some catfish. I will show you. I mean, we have a Cajun catfish. So I put Cajun spices on here. I'm going to put it in the oven while we're talking. It can cook a little bit, and then I'm going to show you how to present it. So the oven is at 375. And what we'll do when we do present it is we'll take one fillet and split it for 2 servings. And then it'll be perched on a bed of kind of a coleslaw. So it's a nice presentation, and it's actually super delicious. I've had that with Adrian before, and it's just a nice start to a meal. So another element, so fish is one of the elements that goes often in a soul food dinner. Other elements include greens and beans. And so I am going to share with you a recipe that is black-eyed peas with ham hocks. And so what you have to do, I mean, you actually use the dried beans, and I have washed them ahead of time and I have them ready to put in the pot. I think you've probably seen black-eyed peas before. You can use other beans, but these are what they look like. There's a little bit of a black and white feature to them. And we're going to first use the ham hock in a Dutch oven, and I covered it with 2 inches of water above the ham hock itself. And if you haven't seen a ham hock, it's basically a joint. It is a joint from a pig. Looks like this. And so it just is very flavorful, flavor from the bone, flavor from the meat that's on there. And so we boil that for quite a while, and then let it sit, and then we're going to put the beans in. So when we're doing the peas, we're going to put them in there and let them cook for about an hour. That's why I started that ahead of time. So the ham hock has been boiling there for an hour. Then now I'm going to drop the beans in with some chopped up onion and some spices. I'm going to use some crushed red pepper and also some salt. And then later on you can put other spices in there if you like, but that's the way that Adrian does it, and you have to believe me, they're amazing. So we're going to put that in there, and then that will cook for at least another 30 minutes, but the last time that I did it, it actually took a little bit longer than that. You want the black-eyed peas to be soft and tender, but not mushy. And so I am just going to drop the beans in there, and I'm going to keep on telling you about the greens as well, which have a certain similarity in the way that they are created. Okay, so the beans went in, and the greens are going to be similar. And we're going to use a smoked turkey wing for that. You can buy these just in King Soopers, so a premium turkey wing. And I did the same thing. I put water in there and I covered it, and it's been boiling for, that same amount of time. What I want to do is I want to get the flavor from the wing, the smokiness, and the turkey itself, and then I want to pull that apart after I do the greens. Now, Adrian's mother is made this recipe that he shared with me. It's called Jonetta Miller's Mixed Greens. And she uses turnip greens and also mustard greens. You can also use collard greens. And so what I did is I got both collard greens and turnip greens to use. I've already rinsed them. We've cut them into little squares. So about like this. Let me see if I can get a good picture of that for you. So, just about that big. And then we're going to drop them in to the water with, again, some spices. And for that, there is a little bit of mustard. We're going to do some salt and pepper, some garlic. I like to mince up the garlic for that. And again, some onion. He also does a little dash of baking soda and a little pinch of sugar just to kind of sweeten it and smooth it out. So you cook those for about 30 minutes. Again, you want them to be tender. You don't want them to be mushy. And actually, one of the things I love about these greens is that when you cook them right, they kind of have a little bit of a chewy texture at the end. They're soft and tender, but have a little bit of chew there because of the thickness of the stems, and it just really tastes good. And when I'm cooking, I like to have lots of different textures and different types of things that I bite into, so it's kind of nice to have that little chewiness in the greens. And then of course there will be some of that turkey wing that is pulled apart as well in there to give that smoky flavor, and also to give a little bit more protein and substance. So, with the soul food dinners that we had, or that they had at that time, they didn't always have a lot of meat. And so they really economized. So they got the most flavorful things and then put that in meals that could kind of stretch. And also in most of these in the far south, sometimes didn't have refrigeration. So having smoked meats was really a great idea. But it has tried the test of time, and they are just amazing and wonderful. So I hope you will try the greens. Now the next thing that I'm going to talk to you about is macaroni and cheese. That is another side dish that often goes with these soul food dinners. And so what I've done, I'll share a little bit of the recipe. It's interesting. He got this one from the New York Times some years ago, and it's just called the New York Times Creamy Macaroni and Cheese, and it has some things in it that I just didn't expect. So I'm going to pull the plates over here. So I'm going to do this in a 8 by 11 pan. You can do it in a smaller one. What you do is that we used some milk, and of course they want you to use whole milk if you can, definitely not skim milk, and then cottage cheese. So there was a cup of cottage cheese in this, 2 cups of milk, and then we're going to be using sharp cheddar cheese in addition to the cottage cheese. Now we've got some spices in there, and we'll share the recipe with you, but I'm going to pour the milk in, this mixture of milk and cottage cheese that's been all whipped up. I'm going to put about half a box of one of these macaronis, and you put it in dry. Now, a lot of times when I've made macaroni and cheese, I already cooked it, or at least partially, so this is dry. And then we're going to put in a full package of this cheddar cheese and mix it all up, and then we're going to put it in the oven. So we put it in the oven at about 400 degrees. Now, the recipe says to save some of the cheese to put on the top, right towards the end, but I have other cheese that I'll put on the top. So what you do for the first 30 minutes, you're going to have foil over this to keep the moisture in, to help the macaroni and cheese to absorb the fluids. And then the last 30 minutes, we're going to take the cover off. so that it can get nice and crispy. And some people put other things on top to make it crispy. It could be breadcrumbs or whatever, but it's just perfect the way it is. So I'm going to grab foil, and I'm just going to pop it in the oven. Unfortunately, we're not going to get a chance to see it, but I will share some pictures with you later. The oven that I'm putting it into is 375, and while I'm there, I'm going to check on our fish. And the fish is looking pretty good. So here's how we're going to plate the fish. We are going to take the coleslaw. Sorry, I keep going in and out. I can't help it. I made this coleslaw ahead of time. So we're just going to take a little mound of coleslaw. What we used was, you can buy coleslaw that's already cut up in the store in a bag, or you can cut up cabbage and carrots yourself. So I put a little bit of mayonnaise, salt and pepper, and a little bit of vinegar. And so we're just going to make a little mound there. And then we're going to put part of this fish on there. So you just plate it like this, and I'm not sure if you can see it. I'll try to move the screen down, but it's just a nice little presentation of the fish going on to the coleslaw. And I can do a better picture for you later, but that's a really quick way to present something, and it gets people tasting a lot of bursting flavors right at the very beginning of your meal. So we've got the greens going, we've got the beans going, the black-eyed peas. We often, with these meals, we would do cornbread. I'm not going to mix it up today just because we don't have that much time. But Adrian uses mini Utsis, cornbread. And so it's pretty easy. I mean, we're using flour and sugar, baking powder, salt, and cornmeal. So you can buy containers of cornmeal in the store that kind of look like an oatmeal container, or you can buy them in sacks. So just simple cornmeal. So it's just a little bit grainier. I'm going to just pull it out. I'm not sure if you guys have used it before. It's actually, this is pretty fine, but it has that yellow look, and it will be really great. I think you can imagine it if you've had cornbread, that it has that nice airy texture. That's a really good complement to the soul food dinner. And with the other things that we've already talked about, it'd be really, really fun. And I just having butter on it, or some people put honey on it, and that's really a nice addition as well. Now, of course, we're going to do chicken. And the way that Adrian does chicken is that you have the chicken at room temperature. And usually when we do these dinners, we are getting a whole chicken and cutting it up so we have different pieces. And so today what I'm going to show you are some thighs and some legs, which are favorites, but oftentimes I just cut up the whole chicken and do that. So you're going to have the chicken at room temperature, and then dry the chicken off, and then we're going to flour it and let it sit for a while. Just let it sit so that the flour really adheres to the chicken itself. And then we are going to dip the chicken into an egg bath. So essentially that is eggs and milk that are beat up together. I have about 4 big thighs and 4 drumsticks. And I actually used 4 eggs and about a cup and a half of milk. And so I don't always measure when I cook, but a cup and a half of milk. And so what we do is we flour the chicken, let it sit for a while so the flour really adheres, and then we dip that floured chicken into the egg bath, and then we put it in the flour again. So it gives it a double layer of crispiness once it's cooked, and it really tastes great. Now, Adrian puts a spice that's called Wash Park spice on his fried chicken, and because I'm the one cooking today, I'm taking a little license and I'm adding other spices. So I like to add into my flour mixture, I like to add some white pepper, red pepper, black pepper, garlic, a little thyme, a little oregano, and a little bit of salt. And so mix that into the flour for both of the flouring times, and it gives it a teeny bit more of a bite. It's still not super hot the way that I do it. And I think what I really want to impress is when you're doing these dinners and you want to hold the integrity of the tradition, of course, and have the different elements of the dinner and try to experience new flavors. But part of cooking is that you get to add your own style. So, I'm going to add my own spices, and you should experiment with that too. What I do, I don't think is very hot, but some people might think it's hot. You just have to experiment, and I really encourage you to do that. So when you put the chicken into the oil, and he actually recommends, and I know it tastes really great, to use lard. Not many of us think about using lard, but it really is great with the chicken. And I've had other people who use peanut oil. And what I found, I had a friend do this experiment for me. If you keep the heat just right, and it has to be at least 330 degrees, but it can go up to like 375 degrees. You don't want it to be so hot that it burns, but you want it to be hot enough so that it cooks it just right. If you let it languish in a lower oil heat, or if you just have a little bit of oil in the pan and you're actually just frying it rather than deep frying it, it really tastes different. But if you do it the way that he suggests, it doesn't actually absorb that much oil. So my friend Nancy tried this, and it really used a very small amount of oil when cooked properly. So it's actually healthier if you do it the right way. So just try to zoom in on that. Now, after this dinner, we're going to have a dessert. And one of the things that Adrian likes to work with is a peach crisp. And so I did some cutting ahead of time. I'm going to grab some things for you. So I have an 8 by 8 inch pan. It's a little bit deeper because this is a crisp. It's going to have lots of fruit in there, and then a nice topping that's like a crumbly oatmeal and flour type of topping. I'm sure you've seen that in other crisp recipes. So I just got some fresh peaches. They look amazing. They taste amazing. And I also am putting some blueberries in there. So peaches and blueberries, there's a teeny bit of sugar. I think it's a 1/4 cup. And I should look at the recipe before I tell you that. But it's not too much sugar. And then a teeny bit of flour so that it doesn't get too runny, and some lemon zest. So, I bought a fresh lemon, and, have a little zester that looks like this. So you could just scrape off the skin if you want, or sometimes you can use one that's like this to scrape it off. It's like a little mini grater. You can also buy lemon zest in the store. So do it whatever you want, but it adds this nice little zing, I think, and there's also some cinnamon in here. So then I took the oatmeal, the brown sugar, a little bit of melted butter, and again some cinnamon, and just going to sprinkle it on top. So it'll add a little crunch to the top. Now this, obviously we're not going to be able to see and eat, and I didn't make one ahead of time to show you, but this would go into the oven at 400 degrees. Let me check that for you before I give you the wrong information. Yeah, so it's going to go in at a little bit hotter temperature. So it's actually 375 for about 45 minutes. And so you want the fruit to be, again, tender, not too mushy, and the top to have this nice crumbly sensation, like kind of a little bit crispy. And so, I've had it and it's great. It's wonderful with vanilla ice cream. It's also really good with whipped cream. So either one of those, it's a nice addition. So a lot of times what people will also do with these soul food dinners is have red drink. And Adrian often talks about hibiscus drink, but really, red Kool-Aid, any kind of red drink would go with it, and that's part of the tradition. So having some kind of fish, some kind of meat like chicken, some kind of greens, something like a macaroni and cheese, something like cornbread to pull it all together. It's just, and those, of course, those black-eyed peas, a little bit of all of those things really, really make an amazing meal and touch. It's really a full spectrum of nutrition as well. So flavor, nutrition, different types of crunch and different types of textures. So it looks nice, it tastes nice, it feels nice. So try to experiment with this if you haven't cooked soul food before. It's absolutely delicious. So I'm going to also talk a little bit about our book review. So we are going to have Adrian actually review his book, and it's a wonderful book, and it's talking about the soul food, as I mentioned to you. So it'll be posted on our website in just a little bit. But in his website, if you want to check out more about him, is adrianmiller.com. He has other books too. He did a book review for us recently, which was on the President's Kitchen Cabinet, which is about all of the Black chefs who have played a role at the White House, which has been almost every single year since the beginning. He's also working on a book, he's almost done. It's called Black Smoke, and it's about African American contributions to barbecue, which of course are significant. And so again, he's marrying the history and the food and the flavors. I mean, you get so many interesting things from reading his book. So I sure hope that you will go on to his website or find those books somehow. The two are already published and the other one is coming up very soon. So I will share pictures, I will share recipes with you later. I hope you have enjoyed learning a little bit about soul food from me. I'm not the expert like Adrian, but I'm trying to do him proud. I am so happy that you joined us today, and I hope you had a great Juneteenth day. Thanks for checking in with us. Please come back next week. We'll be here on Tuesday. And also remember, if you have any needs for resources, if you need to reach out to get assistance, please email us at info@hopecommunities.org. Have a really great weekend. Thanks for joining. Bye.